Michel Smith Boyd. You're here with me, and we're already starting. You're laughing and chuckling.
I'm laughing already
dude.
because it felt so formal. I'm like, okay, we're not doing that.
Oh, no,
right?
no, we're starting there, but we're going to
Okay.
surprise people. No, there is going to be nothing formal.
Today on The Market Makers, Michel Smith Boyd, two-time HGTV Rock the Block winner and one of the most recognized designers in the country. Michel grew up in Thibodaux, Louisiana, a town nobody's heard of. He thought that would disqualify him. Turns out, everything he needed was already there.
What I find so interesting, and maybe a place to start, is you've had this fame, this success, all of that, frankly, later in life, but you're also so humble and grateful and wanting to give back. Most people who achieve levels of success somehow lose a little bit of that. Where do you think that starts? Where does that come from?
I don't think that I ever had any room or opportunity to not be humble, to be perfectly frank with you. I'm from a really small town, a town that nobody's ever even heard of.
Yeah.
So where do I get off being an asshole? There's no room for pretense when you're from a small town because what's important is obvious, right? It's family, it's faith, food, all the F's. I think about like what's important to me, what was important to my family growing up. And I thought that honestly, the truth is that where I came from was going to disqualify me from the things that I really wanted to do because of lack of exposure.
Interesting.
Or watching television thinking, damn, where are those people? I want to go do those things. I want to visit these exotic places and experience this part of the world in life. And the more of the world I've seen as an adult, the more I realize that all the things and the tools that I use to get to this space and in my work, they were already available to me in Thibodaux. They were
So
already
what do you
there.
mean values and like what were those things? What
Values
were those
for sure,
tools?
but even my influences. I mean, actual design influences.
Oh, design, very specifically. I understand.
100%.
Interesting.
Specifically design influences. The architecture that I love and the moods that inspire me that I want to bring back into spaces started out in New Orleans. It started out in Thibodaux, and it started out in the way that my family made hospitality a priority.
Right.
And even things like specifically music. I mean, that is the beginning of every vibe, every mood. There is a kind of like a score in every room that I design, 100%, like a film.
Really interesting. So
I'm from a musical place.
yeah, so wow. I mean, that's like, there's a lot you just said.
It took me a while to figure it out.
So that's what I was going to ask. I mean, that awareness you have that, a room is a canvas or it's almost a blank sheet of music. You get to design and you get to write, so to speak.
It's harmony.
Tell me, like, when did that open up in your mind, Michel? Like, how did that happen?
I would say over the last few years.
Oh, wow.
I think the best thing about getting older, especially in a profession like this, is recognizing that you don't have to have a whole bunch of stuff to communicate the messages that you want to your clients, to whoever's dwelling in the space or occupying the space. It's not about the stuff because whatever that thing is that you're responding to, that physical, tangible object, it's not it. It's how it makes you feel,
Absolutely.
right? And so my job is to recognize that in our clients and understand how to convey that and get it across as soon as you cross that threshold. And so if we couldn't get the $30,000 chair in this project, oh no. What you loved about it, those elements and the things that appeal to you and made those endorphins swim around in your body, I can still do that. And that's what good designers do. We're thinking people, and understanding how to relate to other people. I didn't even realize the thing about the music until recently I started writing. And I thought, okay, I'm writing a book and it should look like this or it should sound like this. And it wasn't working for me because I was doing it like everyone else and I really wasn't being authentic. And I think my goal all the time is to do the things that only Michel can.
Right.
Which sounds ridiculous to say out loud.
No, it doesn't.
But if I'm doing it just like my counterpart, then what's the point? And so the idea of starting back at the beginning and understanding how my original influences still show up in my work, I think that's the story that's interesting.
Right. When you look back, what were those influences, let's say, that start to manifest in who you are now? I'm trying to get into the private stuff here, dude, okay? Work with me. You're a super famous guy who also is super private, and I'm trying to break that wall down.
I didn't even realize how private I am. It's a hazard.
Michel designs rooms the way a composer writes music. But that awareness took time, and it started with a kid who didn't fit in.
I think that one of the reasons I'm so introspective, honestly, is just because I lived in my head since I was a kid. While where I'm from is musical and beautiful, and I can appreciate all those influences today and pull the most positive out,
Right.
it wasn't the easiest thing to be a little gay kid named Michelle in the Deep South.
Okay,
You
fair.
know what I mean?
Fair. Yep.
So I had a
Totally.
lot of time alone to
Interesting.
become creative
Okay.
and hone some of those skills
Huh.
and recognize my value in this space where the things that were really celebrated, like sports and like that wasn't my thing. So
Right.
I was into academics, but really only so nobody would pay attention to me, right?
Wow.
So if I did well in school, my parents wouldn't bother me, but I really only cared about what I was watching, what magazines I was flipping through, what was happening in fashion, the kind of things that I had really little access to, but I felt most myself when I was experiencing.
Interesting. So, I mean, was it isolating a little bit?
You know, if I'm seeing this in media, things that I identify with, that means there are people like me out there.
Right. So you're like, okay, in my little town, they're
it's
not
just
there,
not-
but
it's just not
it
here.
exists.
It exists.
Wow.
Exactly. It exists.
That's big.
And so, and then there's my mom who celebrates you. We have our little club, right? Our family, our niche, even if it's created or if born into it. But even there are certain school teachers that see a light in you and pull it out, like my English teacher, Miss Lagarde, 100 years ago.
We're giving Miss Lagarde a shout out right now.
Big shout out. I think it
English
was
teacher.
sixth grade, creative writing. And so, teachers are intuitive, right? And they're they're nurturing in a way. And she was incredibly maternal, where I felt protected in her space, in her class. If I didn't look forward to school all day, I knew that in that period, I would be seen, and not just seen, but celebrated. And that meant the world to me.
Wow.
And so, every once in a while, just a little dose of courage, a little bit of dose of somebody pouring into you.
Right.
I carry that until the next one.
Sure.
It's
almost like investing a little part of herself in you and giving you a little something to go forward.
Okay, you just pulled something out. I've never said that out loud.
Wow.
I don't think
Well,
I've
I'm
ever
grateful. You're a grateful dude. I'm grateful for you sharing that. But that was probably significant. It had to have been.
Yeah, because the thing is that you don't even know, like I have a word for it now, gay, right? I didn't even know what the word was. Just different.
So
I just wasn't really fitting
that's even
in.
heavier.
Because when you're a kid,
Yes.
you don't think about, you can't articulate it and identify that way. I just knew I didn't show up like every other little boy.
I see.
So I was just a little bit more isolated, a little bit quiet, a lot more reserved, and
introspective.
Attempting to hide as much as possible. Because what you learn before you learn who you learn that it's not okay to be fully yourself.
Right.
So I was able to express myself
In this moment.
in that
with these
writing
moments
class,
with her.
in the arts classes that I had, all the things that I really loved, industrial arts I loved, all those spaces I got to be celebrated. And I was like, man, this feels good. And the truth is, I never thought I wanted to be an interior designer because I didn't know what it was or that it was even a profession. That is not what was showing up in my down south middle class life. I didn't know that was a thing. And so when I discovered it years later living in New York, it's like the walls started coming down. And that was the beginning of self-discovery, the beginning of my journey to authenticity.
When Michel was a kid, he didn't necessarily have the word for what made him different. He just felt different. But he had magazines, fashion, TV, and proof that people like him existed somewhere. So what happens when that kid finally walks into the iconic D&D building in New York City?
So now we're getting to the point where you have this recognition. Tell me a little bit about that design decorator building you went to. I think it was in New York, and that impacted you. Maybe a moment
You did
on
your
that.
homework.
Oh, come on!
Honestly, a trip to the D&D building changed my life completely because I thought as a kid, maybe I'm an architect, maybe, because that's the only thing I knew. We had like 3 choices, right? Because again, even when I say lack of exposure, we always have more than our parents do. More information, more access, bigger ideas, and more freedom. And so even with what my parents knew, they didn't go to college. You had 3 choices: a doctor, a lawyer, maybe an architect. I don't really know anything else. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want to be a school teacher
Yeah.
or anything like that. But it's funny how interior design just kind of covered the full gamut of everything. When I went into the D&D building, I went in with an interior designer. And I was in New York full time at that point. Retail had taken me to Nordstrom, and then Nordstrom promoted me, moved me to New York. And so then my life was there.
I see.
And when I walked in there, it kind of merged all the things I loved. That love I have for textiles when it comes to fashion, the architecture love that I had when I was a kid. And also, it felt like a presentation. And presentation is natural for me. I mean, I'm from Louisiana. What we do is everything is built around hospitality and socializing and making people feel good and creating narratives that foster warmth. And, so interior design felt like the perfect job. At that point, I had even studied acting and so forth in New York. And every once in a while, when I have one of those moments of clarity that, we try to hold on to so tightly, and I'm like, every single thing I did at every step, from a stupid teenager to a silly young adult to a ridiculous 30-year-old, everything, it all led up to sitting in this chair with you, and it was preparing me for all these things. It's amazing how it works.
No, I love that perspective. I mean, life really is a journey, and you take, for good or bad, it's where you are. And life's nothing more than a bunch of small choices that add up to where you are in that moment. That's
Right.
Period. End of story.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, imagine being centered enough to just sit down, just be still, and get the clarity and understand that this is what you should be doing, or everything is pointing to this. Sometimes a pebble won't do, a brick won't do. There's a wall that has to fall on my head for me to get it. And right now I'm hoping that I'm moving a little more quickly to the things that are supposed to be, as opposed to where I did it before.
I love your point about the stillness.
I swear to you, every day my job is to get to become more of myself. It started out with faith, right? And then it moves into, for me, therapy. And then it moved into coaching. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been listening to an old book, The 4 Agreements, every morning, just, because it's a new year, right? And I'm thinking, remembering all 4 of them. And the most important one to me right now is to not take anything personally. No matter what it is, even if it's directed at you, it's not personal, which means I don't have to internalize it. It doesn't have to become a part of my internal dialogue or a mantra in any way, and to always do my best. It's the only thing I'll never regret.
There was a quote from you that I just loved.
Uh-oh.
Somebody had asked you about big breaks, and you don't really believe in big breaks or major turning points. It's intentional days become small wins that equate to milestones. Then the bar moves, and without realizing it, you're living with purpose.
Holy shit.
Dude, I love that.
I said that?
Yes, you did. And I love it. And it was an interview some time back, but I love you're landing on, you're living with your goal and that whole thing, what you're really saying, what you're expressing there. And it's what you just talked about a little bit in a different way. So you are your true self. You just showed it. That was a test. It wasn't a test. But you're trying to live with purpose. That's your purpose is to live with purpose.
Well,
that's amazing.
100%. I'll be clear, because that starts with therapy, and then also recognizing that these opportunities aren't for nothing. Like the little kid that I described being is watching me. There's one just like me then watching the me that I am now. And so honestly, if I could be what he needed, that inner child needs, little Michelle needed, then I feel like I'm winning. I don't want to sell this to you like I'm a victim, right? Because I don't feel that way. But legitimately, I think every artist experiences that, right? Most creatives, every artist, especially if you are coming from an environment that doesn't know how to nurture that. My parents were practical. Very practical, blue-collar working people that didn't know what to do with a kid like me. Yep. I give them a lot of grace for that. And now it's funny for even them to see the full circle moment. Recently, I got an award, and my mom, my brother, and sister came up. And it was really wild for me to be super transparent.
What was that like
stage.
Emotionally?
Was
it hard?
It was.
Was it emotional?
It was emotional, but it also felt good. I don't think my mom has heard me say a lot of the things that I did. And the truth is that I describe where I come from, I don't think they fully understand or understood what I did until I landed on television, because interior design, it really is, you have to have superfluous income
Right.
in
right.
order to even, even consider this
Yes.
or having this person here and in your wheelhouse. So the idea of making a career out of something like that, it's not the easiest thing to understand. And then what I do on television versus how it actually works at my firm is also worlds apart. I think them seeing that and the questions people asked, how I answered, it was mind-blowing for both of us, both them and myself.
And it was probably cool for them in that moment, maybe hearing some of the things from your perspective as a child and that weren't necessarily easy or make them happy, but to see you, as you called it, landing on TV, even if they didn't fully understand the journey, all of that that's kind of a big deal. They've got to be very proud.
In hindsight, yeah. You know what's funny? I never recognized it in the moment. Looking back now, I'm in this space of pivot, which is kind of what designers do for a living, no matter what. We make all these decisions and all these choices, and then real life happens and we're always pivoting. That's the name of the game when it comes to being a creative and actually executing something with a budget, or that involves any other person outside of yourself.
Right.
We have these great ideas and then we hire a legion of other people to execute it for us. It's never going to be exactly like we saw it in our heads.
Right.
And so that's a real metaphor for life as well. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it was just really cool. And I really appreciated them. They drove up. They drove up from Louisiana to here in Atlanta.
Oh, to Atlanta, okay.
And so it was really cool.
That's pretty neat. Wow. Cool. So landing on TV. Now tell us, a little bit about the journey to land, as you called it when your parents said, landing on TV and they started to recognize you.
This is insane, but it's the truth. The truth is that I didn't want to do it. I'm also a weird Taurus that I nest at home. If I don't have to leave the house, I don't. But listen, I do love it as well. There's a part of me that loves it, and there's a part of me that recognizes that I earned it. It didn't happen by accident, but also, unfortunately, I don't get really lost in it. Fortunately and unfortunately, I don't get lost in it.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is that I understand the highs and the lows, you know what I mean? And what it's done for and to my career, positive and negative. So, they're both sides when it comes to that. Television was like the holy grail when I started design. And I think I don't know where the buzz came from. I'll be honest with you. Because I started out doing show houses. And that was the way for me, that was television for me at the moment, because it was an opportunity for any designer to flex their muscle and say, this is what I can do if left to my own devices without all the parameters of a client and so forth and so on. You have a great time with show houses. And I wasn't doing traditional work like most of the designers that were visible, the notables here in the city. Atlanta's still very Southern and still trad, and it's beautiful. But my lineage didn't look like that. So my point of view was a little bit more varied, and my influences were beyond what was around me. And so my rooms looked different. And I was really grateful for the opportunity to share that. I mean, it wasn't completely contemporary, but definitely not traditional. So that transitional world left me a lot of license and a lot of room to hula hoop around design and really show the city something different. And I think that buzz turned into print, and then television came calling. And I think at the time, reality started to become a bigger deal. And places like mine diversifying that market is just the way to go.
Television wasn't the plan. Michel turned it down for years, but winning HGTV's Rock the Block changed everything and forced a question he's still answering.
Tell me how you managing your business design and some of the TV stuff. How difficult, how challenging is that been?
It's very challenging.
Yeah, I imagine.
This last year, I've spent the year getting back to my client, which sounds insane because for the last 6 years, I've been doing television. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want a business card. I didn't want a website or anything when I first started working. And then into television, I turned it down like a couple years. And then eventually it's like, okay. But what happens with TV is that unless you're focused on it, you're not doing it well. Because if I'm not looking at that lens the way that I'm looking at you, that lens is a friend. And I'm talking to a friend, not to a camera, and connecting, then, and I'm present, it's not going to work. I'll get one season, I'll never be invited back to do anything again. And I learned that pretty early on. And luckily, some producers saw, hey, there's more in this kid. He can be bigger, he can do more, connect even better than the last time. And so I kept having opportunities. I say keep instead of kept. But yeah, it's really difficult to do both because what my brand was built on was not only the aesthetic that I described, but the kind of nurturing and attention and hospitality with clients that I learned at home in Louisiana. So the combination of the two, honing the talent, understanding what my point of view was, and creating an environment that nurtured our clients, I have to be present for that. It wasn't something I could teach to my team. And so it's been a battle trying to play double duty. And after Rock the Block, I think is what changed everything for me. I'll be frank about that. I did a show on Bravo years ago. And then when I landed at HGTV, from my show I did all the big stuff. From my own show to Barbie to Rock the Block season 4. And then there was a couple things in between and then Rock the Block again.
6.
Then 6. Winning Rock the Block 4 changed everything. And because it's the most watched show on the network. And it has the biggest budget. It's the most viewed. It's the heavy hitter. To win that show was a big deal. And so I was getting calls from that client. That client is very different than the budgets and the clients that I worked with prior.
Makes sense.
I'm a luxury designer. And I really hate the term at this point. Luxury, it's like saying eclectic. What does that mean exactly? Because it's something different for everyone. You get to decide and define what luxury is for you and that client. But just specifically speaking to budgets, it was a lot different. Because what we do on television has to appeal to that viewer. And every viewer doesn't have a 7-figure budget or a multi-million-dollar home, and not every client, my clients don't all have that either, but most of them do. Many of them do. What I got to do on television was connect with where I came from. The clients that watch HGTV, that viewing audience, that demographic is one that I understand. Creating something out of nothing and stretching a budget and making it look beautiful and being proud about it. It's very, very different.
And so with that backdrop then, as you look ahead, what's next?
There are a few things on the board right now. I think what's different this go round or in this particular phase is that I feel like I can do anything. And I've never felt like that before. It's also all right for me to fail publicly. If I try something and I decide I don't like it or I didn't do it well, that's okay too, because I know that I'm a winner. I know that I'm amazing. I know I can try again, do something different. I'm capable of it. There's nothing that I've done thus far that's been traditional or even made sense. And there's really no roadmap for the kind of goals that I have. So I'm doing all this for the first time. I went from having a really successful firm with great clients, super private, which I love. That's a great life. Into becoming more public because I thought, well, if I have products and, I'm in Crate and Barrel now. Oh, I got a line at Z Gallery now. This is amazing. This is what success looks like. But what it felt like was different than I expected. And the markers that worked for the rest of the world don't necessarily apply to me. That's what I've learned more than anything. And having those lines, that'll never go away. I get to be proud of that. Winning those awards and even having those shows and those really public wins, that's never going to disappear. That's always a part of my lineage. But the idea and the notion and feeling empowered enough to define what's next for me and it just be for me and not for approval is kind of exciting. But it's also scary.
Well, of course it is. But, fear is also a really good motivator.
Sometimes,
And I mean, it can be paralyzing if it can't be managed, but it's
there's
still
payroll.
There's fear and there's payroll, right? That's true. But look, you've gotten to a place, I think it sounds to me like if you really were to be pressed on this in your heart of hearts, there's probably a little bit of that fear or that or payroll concern or whatever. But I think you also are saying you've come to a place, you've earned it. It's not like it was gifted to you. You've earned a place in your headspace and in life that you might misstep or do this or that, but those fears aren't going to really manifest to the place that
But even the missteps, last time I had a talk, I referenced Kanye West, who's famous for his ego.
Yeah.
Even mistakes are great because they teach
Amen.
you so much.
Amen.
They teach you so much. I'm so hard on myself and I'm getting better at that. But I've been so hard on myself about things that were the traditional route that I had opportunities to do, like whether it's this massive show house or this massive opportunity that 1 million designers would kill for. And I was like, it didn't feel right. And that authenticity, I pray, will continue to lead me to the spaces I'm supposed to be in.
It will. One of my favorite sayings, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn.
Always you learn.
You only lose if you don't learn.
100%. And there's no rush. That's the part that I keep repeating in my head. Like, stop rushing, Michelle. Stop rushing.
That's where we started. So you
Michelle.
slow
Stop
it down.
rushing, Michelle.
That's the stillness you talked about before.
But you know what's funny too is that somehow I felt like always at the very beginning of my design journey that you don't get great at this job, like really great, until you're older. Like you have an opportunity in this particular profession to get better and better and better. And that's exciting to me. That's exciting.
It is, because whatever great work you've done, your best work is ahead.
That's amazing,
which
right?
is exciting.
That's amazing.
Well, Michel Smith Boyd, formerly Puna, from back in Little Thibodeau, Louisiana.
This man is calling me my childhood nickname. That's
I told you we had to break those
crazy.
walls down. I told you. But anyway, thank you so much. Again, you're such a gracious person. I am so grateful to have you. I've so enjoyed our time together. So thank you so much. Really grateful to have you.
It's been a pleasure. It's
No,
been a pleasure.
I've really enjoyed it.
What I keep coming back to with Michel is he really leaves an impression, a lasting impression. And I find it just fascinating because he's introspective, he's quiet, he doesn't sell himself in any way. He's just got a quality, something about him that's very thoughtful and people are drawn to. He's got a natural curiosity, he has an ambition and a drive. That's what's so endearing about him, is this deeply thoughtful aspect to him. I think Michel speaks to the criticality of authenticity. Just trying to be more of who you already are is really impressive, and I think there are lessons for all of us in that. And even now, his daily job is to become more of himself. I'm John Perchik. Thanks for listening to The Market Makers. If you enjoyed today's conversation, follow for more stories of transformation from the people who are shaping how we live, work, and gather.